Let's talk about this bank panic and the destruction of the U.S. dollar. I'm going to say something that probably defies some conventional wisdom right now, and I'm sure that there will be detractors out there, but I don't care, actually, because if I'm right, then a lot of people might actually be able to protect themselves and protect their families. And if I'm wrong, well, guess what? No one gets hurt. In fact, you'll actually be a little bit safer and a little bit of a safer position when it officially happens and they announce this. So we'll get to that in a second. It's a little tease for you. Yesterday, a third U.S. bank failed in the space of a week. So this bank is called Signature Bank, which, by the way, is the same bank that shut down President Trump's bank accounts after January 6th. Isn't that kind of ironic in a way? Anyway, I just had to throw that in there. They shut down his bank accounts because he was too risky after January 6th. They didn't like the risk associated with him, Trump, and January 6th, Signature Bank. And now they've collapsed. As David Schaefer says on Twitter, Signature Bank famously closed President Trump's bank accounts to signal its virtue. Go woke, go broke, he says, to signal its virtue. This morning, President Biden came out and gave a rare address to the nation. Of course, he's not taking any questions. He doesn't do that. And he did this ahead of the market open to assuage any kind of fears about a run on the banks. Watch.
Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills. And their hardworking employees can breathe easier as well. Last week, when we learned of the problems of the banks and the impact they could have on jobs of small businesses and banking system overall, I instructed my team to act quickly to protect these interests.
So last week you knew about this, okay? Just to be clear about that, just to rewind the clock. It's not Friday that you knew about this. You knew about this in the middle of the week. You knew about this earlier than we were told. But last week I told my team. So we know, okay, that's how this is playing out. So the message here, though, is very clear. Don't worry about your money, America, because the Fed will step in and create more liquidity so you can withdraw your money. Watch.
Because of the actions that our regulators have already taken, every American should feel confident that their deposits will be there if and when they need them. Second, the management of these banks will be fired. If the bank is taken over by FDIC, the people running the bank should not work there anymore. Third, investors in the banks will not be protected. They knowingly took a risk, and when the risk didn't pay off, investors lose their money. That's how capitalism works.
Oh, is that how capitalism works? He's giving us a lesson in capitalism.
Oh, okay.
You know, so here's how capitalism works. We pick winners and losers, and we, the federal government, pick winners and losers, and then we print more money to bail out certain people.
Yeah.
That's how capitalism works. Just so we're clear on that.
Okay, cool.
I think I got the wrong ism.
Yeah. Socialism or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Philip.
I just want to quickly jump in with something that just really infuriates me, and I hate it. But why it's like the new political rhetoric, not even new, but like decades old, of where anything that happens, they have to point out that it was their administration that did it. He starts out with that, like, me and my administration. I was like, who? Okay, fine. It was.
No,
like,
it drives me nuts because it's right out of the gate. He wants to take credit for it, right? He's like, I instructed, it was my administration moved very quickly. We moved very quickly. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
really?
But the bank failures have been on when he was vice president,
right,
on Democrats' watch. Although, of course, it's monetary policy continues to expand no matter who's in office.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And so does government. So yes, those taking credit for the timeline is stupid because they all do the same thing.
So he blamed Trump in this too, which you were kind of alluding to, this idea of they're all to blame. So he blamed Trump. That's one of the other things he mentioned in this speech. Number 5 on his list was the past administration deregulated things and whatever. Anyway, that's to distract you from the real story. They want us to blame Trump. It's his fault for deregulating the banking industry. That's what the Biden administration wants. That's what left-wing media is saying. All you need to do is turn on MSNBC or CNN. That's what they're saying this morning. And Republicans want us to blame Biden inflation, as they're calling it, right? It's his inflation which caused these treasuries to lose value. All of these banks were loaded up on these treasuries and they lost all kinds of value because of inflation, and that's why there was this big problem, right? So they want to play this back and forth. It's a distraction. I'm saying it's a distraction. This is my theory on this. It's in the same way that the Chinese distraction about the Wuhan lab leak theory, because it's all a distraction from the real story. Everything that we're seeing over the past 24 hours, I believe, is a trial run for a central bank digital currency. This is what I believe. Based on the facts from the FDIC and investors that I trust, this was always going to happen. Just remember some context here. In the fall, right here on this show, we talked about the FDIC held a private meeting. Then that meeting was leaked. During that meeting, the FDIC jokes that the banks are a joke, right? They're not solvent, basically, and that they are a well-known house of cards. They also said that they wanted people to use as little cash as possible. How can we limit the amount of cash that people are using? That's the goal. And when the problem hits, they would release this information on a Friday night so as not to have further panic, right? They want this to hit. They're going to release it on a Friday night. Isn't it kind of crazy that all three of those things just happened on a Friday night? Watch, this is the FDIC.
How would we use targeted guarantees to allay concerns about excess cash use? There's a lot of questions here. And so, there are a lot of things we've been thinking about, and what we want to hear from you today is what you think the priorities would be in order to go about setting expectations appropriately in public about how we would execute Title II, so that if and when we do have to have that announcement on Friday night, ideally Friday night, that people are in a position to receive it, understand it, and say, yeah, that works. And we can see how this will happen. Of course, there will be doubters, but there's a lot of things going on.
So
that's the plan, guys.
Here it is, right? I mean, she literally says it, and it all happened, right? And again, this is why we cover this stuff. Months ago, you guys could have started preparing yourselves, moving money into gold and silver, making whatever you want to play into Bitcoin, whatever, real estate, etc., getting your money out of this system that they control, and also getting as much cash on hand as possible. As Catherine Austin Fitts likes to talk about, cash is king, making sure that you're making withdrawals, keeping cash on hand because they don't want you to use it. But you hear what she said at the beginning there, which is the targeted guarantees. And that's exactly what the Biden administration has done over the past 24 hours. Targeted guarantees. We're going to step in. Don't worry about it. Your money is safe. Don't take it out now. Okay, what we're telling you is we got it under control. Your deposits are safe. The federal government, the Fed is here on a white horse to ride in. You don't have to take your money out. Don't use cash. You're fine. Targeted guarantees.
Yeah, exactly.
And on a Friday night. I mean, okay.
Right.
And Biden says if the FDIC takes over these banks, right? They are taking over these banks now, right? The feds and the regulators are taking over these banks. So they're taking control of the 8th and 7th and 6th largest banks in the United States. It's happening. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was just going to say, and it seems to only be select banks, like it's going to be only banks that they choose, which is them, like you said, choosing the winners and losers. So it's like, what if I'm in a credit union? What if I'm in this small local bank?
Yeah.
Am I just screwed?
Well, it really depends, of course, what kind of banking, how most of these smaller banks are, of course, subsidiaries of larger banks, right? And depending on how they're broken up and separated.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting. At South by Southwest conference is happening right now. And all the panels that were there, the reporting is that all the panels were talking about artificial intelligence and other things. They all got scrapped. Almost all of the panels devolved into discussions about the banking system and Silicon Valley Bank and all of these venture capitalists, all of these people who were there, worried about funding startups and all of these things are how can I need my money. I need to not be a part of a startup anymore.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The Biden administration and the Federal Reserve want you off of cash, and they don't want you using paper money and coins. They can't track you. They can't tax you. Right? You get money under the table, they can't tax you. They don't know that the lawn boy got paid money to mow the lawns in the neighborhood. They want you to move to a digital US dollar, a central bank digital currency they control. With cash and coins, they can't really control it. So they want you using as little of it as possible. And at the end of Biden's speech, he gives us a window into not stopping here. Not stopping here. We'll do whatever it takes. Watch.
Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe. Let me also assure you, we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed.
Yeah, we'll do whatever is needed. And so, they couch this as all very convenient, right?
I mean, but they're pulling different dollars to fund these dollars. So the consumer dollars that were deposited in these banks from just say Joe Schmo, like you and I, right, put our money in. And that money then no longer exists because the bank collapses. So what the Federal Reserve can do is use wholesale dollars that they have access. It's not the same as consumer dollars. And so they are taking a different set of currency to rescue this other set of currency that has disappeared. But that does not mean that the currency that's disappeared will not be felt as a loss, as a hole on the economy.
Right.
So it's not really a fix. It's a power move.
Right. And as Peter Schiff said today, he said the idea that you're not going to feel it is a load of garbage.
Yes.
Because you're going to feel it in another way. Your taxes might not go up on your personalized taxes, but the cost of everything else will. Right? Because if they're going to print money artificially,
yes,
that's inflation, right? They're going to continue to create this artificial economy that doesn't really exist. It's propped up by really the full faith and credit of the United States government and using this central bank digital currency move. And this is what it is. So this is all orchestrated.
And not to mention the fact that it's caused the dollar to lose value internationally, which also affects all of us because now the dollar has been devalued.
Well, which we're going to get to in a minute.
Yes.
We're going to deep dive what this means for the U.S. dollar and the rise of China in just a moment here, because it's all so important to the future of your family and taking care of your family. If you're not paying attention to this, like I'm telling you guys, like you're watching this in action and what, your future retirement and how you're planning for your children or just being able to pay your bills. Go ahead, David.
I just want to say too, also, we're programmed already. Like, it doesn't matter if they come out with a government backed central, currency or whatever, because we're already using Venmo, Cash App and things like that. And all they have to do is regulate those companies that we're already using. So we're already almost there. Like, how many of us actually use cash these days? Not a lot.
Right. And this is why, because they keep telling us that it's dirty, it's less convenient. They're moving us to, contactless and all of these things on purpose. So you're right. I was even thinking about that, like Venmo. We're already there in many ways anyway. Paying the babysitter. Right now, you pay the babysitter or whatever in America using Venmo or whatever instead of like handing them cash. I'll just Venmo this to you, and then of course that's a taxable event, right? So now it's being tracked by the government.
I don't. I released Venmo and canceled my account after I canceled PayPal because they're owned by PayPal.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be fined for a misinformation.
So they're fine with that because then what they're going to do is release their own version of Venmo. So it'll be just like they've done. They're doing just like they've done in Ukraine. Right. Yeah. That'll be their own digital transformation in the United States. So, and they're all couching this as a convenience, right? The convenience that it could speed up payment transactions, improve financial stability, increase economic data, taxing, so they'll know everything. They'll also tell you about you're going to save money on your transaction fees, right? Because they're going to use their own version of a blockchain. So it's going to save on all of these things. And all of that might actually be true, but it portends something deeper and worse. What?
I want to say, in one way they could really sell it hard and make us all adopt it is if they said no more 3 to 5 business days to get your money back. When you have a transaction that the bank is done with, you get it immediately if you take this.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of the infrastructure of banking, whereas, any cryptocurrency could already solve that with instantaneous transactions. But, that hasn't been a selling point. I guess consumers don't seem to understand it.
Yeah. I mean, unless they're doing large financial transactions internationally where they're like, normally it'll take a few hours and I'm making this big purchase, this big wire transaction. Most Americans are not doing that. They want to be able to get their direct deposits from their employer. And they don't want to wait 2 to 3 days. This
is like the thing that kills me the most is that, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and all of these, they have the same potential to subvert this centralized government power. But most people think that it's just too complicated for the average person, which is why it will not supersede a digital currency. And I don't know how to feel about that.
A central bank digital currency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts on that part of it. Do you agree? I mean, because I know there's so many people that always say, well, Bitcoin's the answer, Bitcoin's the answer. And I agree in a large part. I think it's, but however, again, if you have the government stepping in and regulating it or trying to minimize exposure to that and they want their own version of it, you're not going to win. I mean, I just don't see how you're going to win up against these behemoths.
Yeah, I want to believe that cryptocurrency is the punk rock that could take on the man. But I'm not optimistic about it.
Well, like I
change
said,
my mind, please.
When we were doing Morning Invest, I said, there's no way, like, you're going to have to reverse engineer the system, because if you just say, hey, we're just going to adopt Bitcoin or whatever, you're going to have to create debit cards and stuff that put it into the hands the way people are already used to using it. You can't expect people to learn a whole new system of money. So it's like, that would be the hardest part of it, is taking it backwards first, that then move it forward. Whereas they're going to have an advantage with the government, because they can do that. They can put it in the debit cards. They can get the banks on board to do this for them. So we'll be stuck in and have to take it.
Yeah, and you'll have no other choice. So this is all orchestrated under both Trump and the Biden regulators. You know, you can blame Biden, you can blame Trump, you can blame Obama. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's a distraction, because under both Trump and Biden, regulators and the Fed encouraged banks to hold treasury bonds. They both did, which lose enormous value when interest rates rise. So unlike 2008, when all of these mortgage loans were causing the problem and the banks defaulted on them, this time they're failing because of rapidly rising interest rates that the Fed controls. So the Fed controls these, right? And the inflation that they created is the cause of these bank failures. Again, all orchestrated and controlled. And this morning, Congressman Thomas Massie tweeted something that I think tells us everything we need to know. Take a look at this tweet. He said, just got off a Zoom meeting with the Fed, Treasury, FDIC, House, and the Senate. A Democrat senator essentially asked whether there was a program in place to censor information on social media that could lead to a run on the banks. So,
to which I got up and ran around screaming around the house. That should terrify everybody.
Right. But here's the problem. If they wanted to suppress this, it would already be suppressed. If social media, Google, and all of this big, deep state cabal wanted this message of bank runs suppressed, it would be. We wouldn't be allowed to do YouTube videos on it.
But they want the power to suppress it. That's what's scarier. Not that they would do it this time because the cat's out of the bag and maybe there's a method to that madness. Yes, I see where you're going with this. But the fact that they could then use this collapse to gain more power, the same way that they use the vaccination program to now take this power out of doctors of what they can and cannot say.
Well, that's my point, though, right? So around COVID or the Ukraine war or any number of issues where it's been suppressed and kept away from you so you don't learn the truth about it, social media and the deep state has an amazing mobility opportunity where they roll out and they do this immediately. So if there was a real big concern about bank runs, you wouldn't see YouTube videos on it. You wouldn't see, arguably you would still see tweets if Elon Musk is still there, but you wouldn't see it all over the nightly newscasts. Yeah. It would be suppressed. Nord Stream, right? Here's an example, right? It shows up on no nightly newscasts. It's largely suppressed. COVID, all of these things. And so I think they want you to know about this so that you are more inclined to want to move to a central bank digital currency.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. But then I think about all of the people who then study tax law and think about, like, how do I maximize my money? How do I, and those people now you can remove the ability to thrive inside the rules of a system. Like we think about our friend Tom Wheelwright at the Wealthability Network, great podcast if you want to talk about wealth maximization. He wouldn't be able to say anything that he says now based on these rules, because he tries to help people make money and pay less taxes by the rules. That there would be no more room for interpretation at all. It's just, pay maximum amount of taxes, shut up, do the work, be a robot.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.